Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. How y'all doing, everyone? We hope that you're having a wonderful Friday. You made it through the week and you are ready for some Computer America. Today on the program, we have a whole hour of computer and technology news. Lots of different things to talk about. Everything from, what is this one? Cops and their clever use of music to thwart videos of them online. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Tesla reaching a new milestone with, of course, 200,000 cars shipped in a single quarter. So very impressive. That and everything from, we have... not that one. I don't know how the heck that one got in there. All that and more, including at Intel and Apple, maybe some of the first ones to use TSMC's new 3-nanometer chips that should be coming probably in a number of years, but still, it's very, very cool. So all that and more, everyone, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, show notes, the podcast. If you can't listen to us live on IRN, then we, of course, encourage you to go check us out on our podcast wherever podcasts are heard. Simply search Computer America, and we should pop right up. Last I checked, I think we were up to, I want to say like 400 or 500 episodes. Now, clearly, due to the format of our show, I try to keep special, kind of note whenever we do a special segment here on the program that transcends time, at least for a couple of months, if not a couple of years. They are very relevant and kind of self-contained, but a lot of our shows are, kind of depending on the guest or depending on the news segment, they're very timely. So, not all 500 episodes need to be listened to enjoy Computer America, but you can't go wrong by just listening to the latest one. Now, with all that being said, I think, of course, find us on social media. Keep an eye out there for new contest giveaways and guest appearances. And yeah, I think it's a good time to just get started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Okay, so our first one is, let's see. I think our first story that we're going to do is, and still looking for stories even as we talk. Okay, this one, and I found it from a different source, but we'll go ahead and go with this one from The Verge. And it may be a touchy subject, but it has to do with Facebook and the fact that Facebook has not been, doing too well with the type of content that it shows. And, the type of content that it shows, to some people, they, whenever they take down things, some people get very angry. To others, they definitely don't take down enough. It doesn't matter what side that you're on. Censorship is always always censorship and moderation are always a tough line to draw. You're going to make someone upset, and by doing something, and you're always going to make someone upset by not doing enough. Now, Facebook confirms test of a new anti-extremism warning prompt, and they're saying that it can show up if you've seen extremist content, and what categorizes someone as extremist, what determines if content is flagged as extremist. That is up for debate, I'm sure, but let's see what Facebook's going to try to do. Facebook is testing prompts that will link users to an anti-extremism support and resources if the company believes the user knows someone who could be on the path to extremism, or if the user has been exposed to extremist content themselves. They mentioned that in a statement to The Verge, Facebook spokesperson said that the test was part of the company's larger work to assess ways to provide resources and support to people on Facebook who may have engaged with or were exposed to extremist content or may know someone who is at risk. The immediate knee-jerk reaction that I have to this is that those who are exposed to extremist content, to the point, and I'm sure that they're talking about content that would, potentially lead someone to harm themselves or someone else, due to these views. And my immediate reaction is, of course, Facebook prompting people that, something you may have seen in the past couple of days, or that we know that you've seen in the past couple of days, may lead people to, hold these ideas in their head. And it's whenever you start to chase down this rabbit hole of, I don't trust mainstream media, I don't trust, these sources, I don't trust Facebook or Twitter, I don't trust, these larger organizations to deliver you news, you start to go out of your way to find other places to find news. And it's questionable if Facebook prompting people, saying, some of the information you have seen isn't true, check out these resources here. It's questionable to me how much of an impact it's going to have on someone who is already out there looking for more trusted sources of information. Or at least to them, more trusted sources of information. How much will it really help in these situations? Facebook says that it will continue to remove extremist content that violates its rules, though the company has had issues tracking down and removing similar content. Even from groups that it actively tried to kick off the platform, Facebook has long been the subject of scrutiny from the public and lawmakers, as many say that its algorithms divide people and push them towards extreme ideologies, something the company itself has recognized. This has to do with, of course, the very basics of Facebook, where while gathering data on you, they know that you enjoy certain types of posts. And because their mission as a company is to deliver ads, relevant ads, collect user data, and get you to engage on the platform, metrics such as time spent on platform, the amount of posts that you like or don't like, that you click on, that you click through to, all these little things, all these little metrics are what they're after. So they have realized that, let's take something innocuous, let's say Ben enjoys video games. If they serve me more and more news about video games, especially video games that I enjoy, post videos, content creators, things all about video games, Facebook is safe to assume that I will, kind of run with that, and I will stay on the platform longer, engage more with content that I like. That very basic model works against people, because when you take it to the next extreme, when you take it to politics, you're only going to hear content from one side of the political spectrum, whichever one that you subscribe to. People will get into these bubbles, thinking that, and I've seen it so much, that they'll create these narratives that, I can't believe one side thinks this, the other side thinks that, red versus blue. There's no nuance. There's no, I can't believe anyone is this in the current year. And it's really troublesome, but that is the kind of environment that social media puts you into, because, the stuff that you like is the stuff that you will see more of. And that kind of gets the ball rolling, and you will continue to get that. When it comes to extremist content, or content that is just straight up, conspiracy theories, fictitious lies, even violent lies, even if Facebook can try to, keep it off its platform, kick it off, clean it off, its algorithms can only do so much. People will find out ways around the algorithm, and that content will continue to spread to the people that are, in most cases, the most susceptible to it. If you already think A and B is tangentially related, or people who think A as well also enjoyed B, then you are going to be served option B. And option B, may be very offensive or extremist in these cases. So Facebook, by its nature, is going to be a very vicious cycle of promoting these kinds of ideologies. So how they actually fix it is, they already have a team of moderators that's, tens of thousands of people strong, and just know it's almost like monitoring YouTube, where like every hour on YouTube, there's like, not thousands, I think like hundreds of years worth of video uploaded every single hour onto YouTube. You cannot pay enough people to moderate all of the content that comes out of it. Facebook is the exact same way. With billions of monthly active users, you cannot pay enough people to moderate what happens on Facebook. So, how they actually do it, let's find out. But Facebook says that the tests go along with its Redirect initiative, which helps combat violent extremism and dangerous organizations in several countries. According to its webpage, the program, as the name implies, redirects users to educational resources instead of further hateful content. It also says that the test is part of the response to the Christchurch Call for Action campaign, which, if you don't remember that one, that was the horrible mass murder of people in New Zealand, I believe, where a gunman actually live streamed himself shooting people and just promoting really dangerous and horrible kind of conspiracies, and then of course took his own life, took the lives of, I want to say, like 50 plus people. And all of this, again, happened on, I believe, on Facebook, on a live stream, and then videos of that spread like wildfire, and it was incredibly hard to get all of the different versions of the video footage taken down off social media. Even though, that was Facebook's number one mission, was to get that video down, that video stayed up for a long time. And it really goes to show that Facebook had so little control over their own platform. They mentioned that the test identifies both users who may have seen extremist content and those who have had enforcement actions taken against them by Facebook in the past. The test links to resources intended to help someone intervene if they're concerned about a loved one joining a violent extremist group or movement. On a Facebook support page titled "What Can I Do to Prevent Radicalization?", Facebook links to Life After Hate's Exit USA program, which Facebook says helps people find a way out of hate and violence. Facebook, like other platforms, has had issues with extremism for a long time, as we kind of mentioned. As many platforms are still struggling to get a hold on users who harass women or display other general toxic behavior. Yeah, it's Facebook is having trouble with it. Twitter's having trouble with it. Anyone who hosts people and other people's content, including YouTube and Twitch and anything else, they're having problems with it too. It's certainly not easy to allow people to have the freedom to post anything they want and then retroactively decide what should be approved. That is also at the heart of Section 230, which comes up on the show pretty often. And it's unless you go off the deep end one way or the other, either you ban people from posting content until it can be approved by Facebook, and then that is, probably the worst case scenario, because then only the message that Facebook, Twitter, Google, whatever, then only the things that they approve of get through those filters. And then the other side of it, which is let everything out and there be no moderation whatsoever. And we have seen that completely backfire as well, where it just becomes a cesspool, a breeding ground for the most vile and hateful ideas on the internet. And as we've talked about in the past, where when you let zero moderation happen, like a common carrier, but of course you let those posts stay up and people engage with it, it pushes people to the extremes. There's no one in the middle of, just kind of enjoying lightly in a conversation like that. It's always one way or the other. So I think we're going to kind of end it there, but Facebook confirms test of a new anti-extremism warning prompt. Will it have any effect? That's a wait and see, but I do not have high hopes that Facebook would be able to do anything, if at all, with that. But it's at least a small start. Let's we have time for that, but we'll probably touch on that in a little bit. This one struck me as very funny. So, for those who don't know, there are emulators and ROMs, and emulators are completely legal, to be able to recreate an environment, be it an old game console, be it a particular computer platform. You can have like DOS ROMs, you can have ROMs that emulate, I'm sorry, not ROMs. You can have emulators that emulate old Game Boy systems and things like that. Owning an emulator is not illegal. But the things that you run on most widely adopted emulators, which are ROMs, ROMs, are very illegal, because those are generally copyrighted, patented. They're, most people may know emulators from video game consoles. And then, of course, owning a ROM would be the illegal part, because it is a straight up copy and rip of, let's say, Super Mario, for instance. So the spreading of these ROMs can be, it's highly contentious because they're illegal. The software to do it is not so much, and owning one or the other, not so much, except for, of course, copyrighted ROMs. So Nintendo in particular, which is what the story comes up with, is having a bit of an issue with the owner, who is actually considering bringing back his taken down website. This is so crazy. Kyle Orland, Ars Technica, saying that despite a $2.1 million ruling, RomUniverse owner considers bringing back ROM sites. And that's Nintendo seeks permanent injunction after Stormin fails to make, and this is the fun part, $2.1 million, and he only had to make a $50 a month payment, and he failed to make it. That's not good. That is not good. So in May, a U.S. District Court ordered former RomUniverse.com owner Matthew Stormin to pay $2.1 million in damages to Nintendo for copyright and trademark infringement. Now, Nintendo is seeking an additional permanent injunction against Stormin, who it says is considering bringing back the ROM site without Nintendo content, and who has failed to make a $50 per month payment towards those damages. To be fair, I'm not the best at math. I think that comes out to like $425. It would take him, so $2.1 million divided by 50 equals 42,000. So it would take him 42,000 months. And 42,000 divided by 12, you're looking at about 3,500 years. So sometime by the year, what would that be? Sometime by the year 5,000. 5,500 and, what was that, 18, he would have this thing paid off if he had kept up with those monthly payments. But clearly, he did not want to. And, that $50 a month was more, kind of just a reminder, don't do what you did, more than any kind of actual punishment, because Nintendo definitely could have ruined the guy. And instead, let him do that. Now, Storman, who said in court documents that his post-RomUniverse income was derived primarily from unemployment and food stamps, seems unlikely to ever pay even a small chunk of the $2.1 million judgment against him. Paying a token $50 a month, an amount Nintendo says they proposed and agreed to, would mean that fully covering the damages would be 3,500 years. Wow, I could have saved myself some math here on the air if I just read a little bit further into the article. But still, that's without interest. Still, Nintendo is using the damages to its advantage, arguing that Storman's failure to make his first $50 monthly payment demonstrates that Nintendo has no adequate remedy at law for defendants' past or future infringement, blah, 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 and underscores the need for a permanent injunction. Essentially, I think it really comes down to money, and this guy was making some kind of money on this service, and even with him saying that he's going to, even with him saying that he was going to put it back up without Nintendo content, he doesn't sound like a programmer who's making these ROMs, of his own content. He sounds like someone who is taking other people's video games, hosting them, and earning money off of them. You can see here from the original article that Ars posted here was that he was earning about $30,000 a year. Not much, definitely a sizable chunk of advertising revenue, but yeah, he was earning $30,000 a year, and he wants to start earning that again. Meanwhile, in a recent court filing, they mentioned that the lawyer recounts a telephone call he had with Storman on June 3rd after the court's original ruling. In that call, they said that Mr. Storman stated that he was still considering what to do with RomUniverse, and that if he were to bring back the website, it might have video game content and ROMs from companies other than Nintendo, but would not have Nintendo content. Still illegal. Essentially saying, this particular video game company, got me for $2.1 million, but all the others didn't, so I can go back to making my money. They mentioned that the opposition does not dispute that Storman is considering relaunching the RomUniverse website to continue to distribute video game ROMs, nor does it assert that this future use will not violate Nintendo's intellectual property rights. And what they're saying there is essentially, he can promise not to do Nintendo, but let's face it, the fact that he said this in a deposition at all just blows my mind. Kudos for him for being very candid and honest to people. But still, even if he puts it up and starts hosting other companies' video games, which would be bad, he's also it would be very hard to keep Nintendo's ROMs off the site because they're still out there. He obviously was able to get them once and get them published. So odds are someone somewhere is going to get those again and post them once again. There's no stopping if he actually does this. What happens? They mentioned that even if a ROM site ignored all Nintendo published games, though, it could still face legal trouble from Nintendo for misusing trademark console names and imagery, or for suggesting a legitimate relationship with Nintendo's console hardware that doesn't exist. And of course, they talk about the Internet Archive's console living room project, for instance, and it doesn't officially include any licensed game from Nintendo consoles out of fear of legal threats from Nintendo. And Nintendo was so vicious on this because they know that their games and their console and their trademarks mean everything to them. So Nintendo is going to be really pit bullish when it comes to fighting these things in court. So with that being said, trying to read here, Storman, who is representing himself in the case, has meanwhile filed his own somewhat rambling motion asking the court to reconsider the statutory damages it imposed in May, saying, quote, "There is no legitimate admissible evidence that the court can reasonably construe to cause it to believe that plaintiff, Nintendo, sustained any actual damages whatsoever as a result of any of the defendant's actions or inactions," he writes about himself. In its response, Nintendo argues that it has already presented uncontrovertible evidence that there were approximately 50,000 illegal downloads of ROMs at the time that Nintendo filed the complaint, and the retail price for the games is between $20 and $60. Much like pirating, because this is essentially pirating, this is essentially pirating. Just because someone pirates something once doesn't mean that they are losing one sale from that. Downloading a free copy of something is very different than shelling out $60 to be able to consume that same content, because odds are they weren't going to buy it in the first place. The fact that it's free makes people much more likely to buy into it. Nintendo could say that the 50,000 illegal downloads meant that there were 50,000 less sales of their games, which it seems like that's probably what it really came down to. They kind of took the middle route, and between 20 and 60, and they said $40 a game, 50,000 downloads, $2.1 million in damages. And that's probably how they arrived at that number. That's probably, again, not the case, but hey, in court, on paper, makes complete sense. So for the defendant to go out there and say that, oh, I did not harm Nintendo in any way, hosting the website that makes it easy and quick to steal Nintendo's content, that's just an all-around bad idea. And if anyone out there is listening to this that is thinking of doing the exact same thing, of all the companies, don't mess with Nintendo. And you know what? Also, don't do anything illegal. That would also be very advisable. Yeah, that was, again, that just blows my mind that he's considering bringing it back. But for $30,000 a year for doing, probably very little work, just a little bit of curation, bad idea. But hey, money talks. Money talks, money talks. Okay. Speaking of talking, let's do this robocall update. For those who don't know, this year, even with COVID, we were supposed to receive the answer to robocalls. And US hits anti-Robocall milestone, but annoying calls won't stop anytime soon. And if you have any of the major carriers, you may have noticed that more and more of these calls are labeled, kind of spam risk or, fraudulent, or however your carrier, kind of labels it. And it's been pretty nice. I haven't really received a phone call from a number that I didn't recognize that was scam or was spam. It's honestly been a little while, and I'm very happy with it. So, the nation's largest phone companies have met a federal deadline to deploy a new anti-Robocall technology, but unwanted calls and scams will continue to be an annoying problem for Americans for the foreseeable future. So the FCC, they announced Wednesday that the largest voice service providers are now using StirShaken. StirShaken, we've covered on the show before. It's essentially a third, much like HTTPS for websites. It's a way for phone companies to third-party verify that the calls are coming from the number that they say they are, and if the calls are spoofed in any way, that will appear on your caller ID, saying that this is a potential scam. They mentioned that, so that was in accordance with the June 30th deadline set by the FCC. The widespread implementation helps protect consumers against malicious spoof robocalls and helps law enforcement track bad actors. It has already been deployed by AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and US Cellular. That was back in March. And with that being said, the FCC denied petitions for a deadline extension from Verizon and US Cellular, saying that the petitions have failed to meet the high standard of undue hardship. There you go. On the mobile side, Verizon is now exchanging stir, shake, and enable calls with wireless carriers that collectively represent around 80% of the US wireless industry, and saying that more than 135 million calls a day are currently being exchanged between Verizon and participating carriers, with that number growing quickly. It's also deployed an IP-enabled wireline phone network operated by Comcast, Charter, AT&T, Verizon, and others. Essentially, it's going well, and a large number of calls are being screened. With that being said, though, landlines and small carriers, because this was for mobiles, and honestly, I don't blame them. Most people have cell phones. How many people actually have landlines nowadays? Copper landlines are clunky. They are, expensive to put in, and they're just kind of old technology. So they don't have the same protections that cellular networks do. So, a little bit of catch up there, but I'm sure it will be added there. Let's see, skimming the article here. They're hoping to give that capability by September 2020. And let's see, the requirement also does not yet apply to small phone companies with 100,000 or fewer customers who were given until June 30th, 2023 to comply. Let's see. They also mentioned that they want to make the deadline June 30th, 2022, because evidence demonstrates that a subset of small voice service providers appear to be originating a high number of calls relative to their subscriber base, where essentially they're saying that by using these lesser known, smaller, much smaller voice carriers, those are actually the ones that are harboring the robocallers. And I'm sure that the robocallers know that these smaller carriers are exempt and that they're not going to be caught as much or as often if they use, these much, much smaller carriers. So they're looking to actually push the deadline up for those small carriers. Now, saying that there's a stir-shaking gap in at least one large network, in December 2020, AT&T told the FCC that it recently discovered that a small volume of calls entering AT&T's network on its wholesale VoIP platform and terminating to AT&T VoLTE customers uses network elements that cannot retain the shaken header information and thus cannot be verified. They later noted that AT&T's own admission, it will not be capable of fully implementing this until June 30th, 2021. They told the FCC that the problem, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, about 4% of AT&T's calls cannot be verified, but that's still pretty darn good that they can now verify about 96% of their calls. Now, all that being said, you may be asking, why am I still receiving robocalls then, Ben? Well, robocalls originating from overseas remain a stubborn problem. Multiple U.S. agencies have worked on this problem. The Department of Justice last year sued small voice providers that allegedly connect hundreds of millions of fraudulent robocalls from Indian call centers to U.S. residents. And the FCC has pressured U.S.-based carriers that act as gateways for foreign robocalls to block them. So a number of robocalls obviously originate in India, but then there's also, for those who don't know, Brazil actually has a robocall issue as well. With I want to say it's so rampant. It's like 96% of all calls are robocalls. Whereas in the US, it's about 1 out of every 2, about 50%. There, it's like 9 out of every 10 is a robocall. It's a problem all over the world. And it's at least something that the major carriers can implement stir shaken, and hopefully within the next year, the smaller carriers will be able to as well. But hey, something is better than nothing, and so I think people will start to see, kind of spam risk and, potential threat, things like that on their phones. And hey, at least then you'll know what to not pick up. Even if the call still attempts to connect, at least you'll know not to pick it up. Okay. Speaking of weird trickery with technology and verifying things, that's the best segue I could do. Law enforcement is actually doing something that, for those who don't know, there's this thing called DMCA, the Digital... it's like the Digital Music Act of, DMCA request for takedown, but it has to do with digital rights management, and the Digital Millennial Copyright Act is what DMCA stands for. But still, it essentially means that if if Ben wanted to, in let's say this video that we're going to put up on YouTube later, if I wanted to start playing, Lady Gaga, why not? YouTube's content management system will automatically detect, as it does when it scans all videos that are uploaded to YouTube, it will scan it for copyrighted material. And so if I played the entirety of a pop song, it would flag my video, it would take that part out, and it would mute all the audio because it cannot separate 2 different audio tracks, and that's just the way life is. Now, it looks like cops are doing that to their advantage, or at least attempting to, because they're trying to play, in this case, Taylor Swift, to prevent sharing of a video online. And let's get into this. This is coming to us from Mashable and Miss Morgan Sung. And they're saying that the police are attempting to use YouTube's stringent copyright system to keep people from posting records of encounters with law enforcement. Where in a video posted yesterday by Anti-Police Terror Project, a community organization dedicated to defund the Oakland Police Department, they say that a sheriff's deputy, I should say, pulled out his phone and began playing Taylor Swift's Blank Space during an encounter. He openly admitted it can't be posted to YouTube. And although I will say it can be posted to YouTube, it will be demonetized and sections of it will be muted, but yeah, it can definitely still be posted to YouTube. They're saying that, are we having a dance party now? That's what someone asked in the video, saying, are you playing pop music to drown out the conversation? The person recording asked. After a back and forth, the deputy said, you can record all you want, I just know it can't be posted to YouTube. Which is the weird thing for law enforcement in particular to kind of assume that can't happen. Because if you scroll down just a little bit in the article, here it is posted on YouTube. That is probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Still, they pressed Shelby on whether the sheriff's office told officers to play copyrighted music. He told Birch that he was just listening to music, saying that you're choosing to listen because you're such a big Taylor Swift fan. And they mentioned that to make sure that this wasn't posted on YouTube. That is correct. I'm playing my music so that you can't post it on YouTube. He was incredulous and told Mashable he's still incredulous now, and because of YouTube's convoluted copyright policies, actions like this may prevent vital police encounter videos from spreading. The only thing that would happen would be whenever they play music like this in the background or on their phones to be recorded, those sections of the video would be muted. It would then be up to whoever's uploading it to have some kind of transcription, or they would of course have the original encounter on their phone, and they could transcribe it and let people know what was said during the muted parts. It would not work in any serious way beyond that, though. Let's see. So the article goes on for a bit, trying to see if there's anything. Seeing if there's anything else that we really need to see. They're saying that taking a clip from the live stream and posting it online with the music in the background is met with varying restrictions depending on the platform. YouTube's copyright policies are uniquely poised to put those filming cops at a disadvantage. Though, again, it's not really that crazy. A YouTube spokesperson, so let's see what YouTube has to say about this, saying that they don't have anything to share regarding the specifics of the video posted, instead deferring to the company's policies posted online. The policy states that creators should not upload their videos that they did not make or use content in their videos that someone else owns the copyright to, such as music tracks, snippets of copyrighted programs, or videos made by other users without the necessary authorizations. Copyright owners can submit a DMCA complaint online, which will prompt YouTube to remove the video and issue a copyright strike. Of course, and that can get the channel closed, but by and large, it doesn't really stop anything though. Let's see. So with that being said, the potential for a copyright strike, however, should not discourage bystanders from recording the police. As of Thursday, the video is still up on YouTube, even with Taylor Swift's song playing in the background. It's really, I'm surprised that law enforcement thinks that that's the rule, that YouTube can't host the video because there's copyrighted music playing in the background. Certainly not the case, and nice try, pretty creative. It does sound like one individual, though, who heard some bad information. It does not sound like a policy, a department-wide policy to do something like that, but pretty creative, I must say. Pretty creative indeed. Okay, how about we talk about some hardware, and some serious hardware, like some seriously impressive hardware. Tsmc and their 3nm chips. It looks like the big winners from this new process, if they can get it working, is going to be, Intel and Apple. Which is fun because TSMC has long been considered a rival to Intel. But ever since Intel and their trouble with their production, moving from the 11nm to the 7nm chip size, they have since worked out a deal where Intel is actually renting floor space from TSMC and their procedures to actually, create chips on that platform. So now, instead of being competitors, Intel is one of the biggest customers of TSMC for the betterment of them both. But still, the 3nm, which was only announced like a couple of months ago with IBM, they were able to do it for the first time, and it looks like TSMC wasn't too far behind. But they're saying that they should have this in production in the next couple of years. Now, Apple and Intel are reportedly testing chips designed with TSMC's 3nm process and could be the first to market with the technology. Intel may be planning to use the chips in next-gen notebooks and data centers, while Apple could be the first with a 3nm processor in future iPad models. Taiwan-based TSMC will reportedly start manufacturing processors for both companies as early as next year. They've really been hitting it out of the park, and to see TSMC able to do that, it was really big news when AMD was able to snag like 7nm out from Intel, and for phones to start using 5nm. The fact that they can so quickly move on to 3nm is really impressive. They mentioned that the company has targeted 3nm volume production for the second half of 2022, with products likely coming along in 2023. Here's the fun part of why do nanometers matter? Why am I so concerned about the difference between a 5 and a 3, a 13 and a 7? Check this out. TSMC expects the new tech to deliver 10 to 15% greater performance at the same power levels, so same amount of electricity, same amount of battery life, and you still get a 15% improvement in speed and responsiveness and everything that you want out of these devices. Or reduce power 25 to 30% at the same transistor speeds over 5 nanometer tech, which might actually be even better, where people can expect the same performance, almost no improvement in performance, but a 30% longer battery life. Of course, that's just from the processor. There's still a lot of things that contribute to battery life, but still very impressive. I'm sure that the difference will probably be somewhere in the middle, with 5 to 10% increases in performance, with 10 to 15% increases in battery life. The company also has a 4 nanometer process set to arrive in 2022, offering an evolution over 5 nanometer with minimal changes required by chip designers. The iPad was reportedly to be the first device powered by the 3 nanometer chip, and the next gen iPhones rolling out next year will use 4 nanometer tech for scheduling reasons. Very, very impressive that they're able to do this. Now, with that being said, if the rumors prove accurate, Intel could possibly beat AMD to 3 nanometer tech, as AMD plans to use 5 nanometer chips for the next gen Zen 4 processors. AMD now relies on TSMC for its processors and GPU chips, as its previous supplier GlobalFoundries decided not to manufacture 7 nanometer or smaller chips back in 2018. TSMC is building a $12 billion chip fabrication plant in Arizona and plans to use its current 5 nanometer manufacturing technology. Intel, meanwhile, plans to invest $20 billion in 2 Arizona factories. I don't know why chip manufacturers love Arizona, but they do. And honestly, with Intel putting up almost twice as much capital in expanding production as TSMC, that might catch Intel up, if they're lucky, to where TSMC is currently, because they've been behind for so long, and now that they're partners and now that they're actually customers of one another, that's definitely good, and that gets Intel back in the competition with its current set of products. But Intel needs to start manufacturing these things themselves and selling them to other customers, because regardless of what you think, everyone needs these processors, and just the ability to make them. If you none of these are sitting around useless. Someone, somewhere, some tech company needs these processors for phones, tablets, computers, laptops, data centers, so on and so forth. There is a dire need for more production capability. So regardless of who makes them, everyone is going to benefit from their production. And hey, I'm also one of those people that I really just have been with Intel for almost my whole life. So I would enjoy if Intel were competitive once again. That'd be really neat. And hopefully we see that. Now, we have plenty of time to check out a couple more of these. Let's do a Tesla story. Yep, let's do a Tesla story. Where Tesla, we can have, first the bad, then the good. We'll end Tesla on good news, but we'll start it on bad news. Where, according to the Washington Post, Tesla had a bit of an accident last night. I think this was last night. The vehicle was among the first of Tesla's premier model distributed to customers, and Tesla Model S Plaid erupts in flames and briefly traps owner after electronic doors fail. And anyone who owns cars or works on cars knows this, the more you automate, the more systems you put into a car, the more points of failure you have. That's why some people really enjoy their old, Ford pickup trucks, is because, hey, if you don't have electric windows, your electric windows can't fail. That little crank will never fail on you. Or if it does, it's super easy to fix. Now, Tesla, though, everyone knows they're super highly automated. They're super highly interconnected, and they can fail. There's a lot of points of failure. So let's talk about this. This one just published this morning, and saying that a Tesla Model S Plaid erupted in flames as the owner was driving down the road on Tuesday. Attorney for the man said, briefly trapping him in the car after the electronically activated doors would not open. It happened outside Philadelphia days after, and let's see. This was on June 29th. So this might have been the car. And, for those who aren't watching, I'm trying to see if this photo was actually from the car itself. It looks like it is. So we're going to go ahead and leave it up there. But still, it happened outside Philadelphia, days after the man took the delivery of the model that Tesla has hailed as the world's quickest production car. Tesla said it delivered the first 25 vehicles in June after its CEO held a glitzy media event in Fremont, California. Authorities from the fire department initially said that they were investigating a fire involving a Tesla Model S, but by Thursday, the news released that it had been taken down. Authorities arrived to find the car engulfed in flames, and the fire department said it took over 2 hours to extinguish. And the law enforcement matches up what we heard from the other car, the other Tesla that burst into flames, was that it takes about 45 minutes or an hour to get it to even stop being on fire. Like, you just have to keep pouring tons and tons of water on these lithium batteries as they explode. And then after that, you have to wait another hour to make sure that nothing is going to reignite and again, explode on second responders such as paramedics who tried to get to them. They mentioned that we had it towed to a location that was secure, and it caught fire on Tuesday night. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it's gathering information on the incident, and actually that's another article we really didn't cover, which was Tesla now has to report all fires and crashes. Well, obviously fires, but mainly it was the crashes caused by autopilot. The National Highway Safety Transportation Safety Board now requires everyone to report automated crashes to them. So under more scrutiny, and Tesla, because they are like the number one name in electric cars, they're going to be under more scrutiny than other companies. Now, attorneys for the driver who they declined to identify shared photos of badging and documentation confirming that the vehicle was a Model S Plaid and said it had been delivered the weekend before the incident. They confirmed that he is representing the owner and called for Tesla to take the vehicle off the road, saying that this is a harrowing and frightening situation for an obviously major problem. Our preliminary investigation is ongoing, but we call on Tesla to sideline these cars until a full investigation can occur. Essentially, I'm sure that after this fire happened and people started to find out that it was a Tesla car, I'm sure that law firms from across the country started to beat down this man's door and say, we want to represent you. We want to sue Tesla on your behalf. So, I'm glad that the door was actually able to open, because they said that obviously, if the door had locked and, left the person inside, there would have been almost zero chance for this gentleman to survive this kind of car accident and this kind of fire. And zero chance for firefighters to be able to get in there and rescue the person who was in the car. So I'm glad he was able to make it out safely. what actually caused the door to stick? I mean, obviously, what caused the car to catch fire? What kind of crash happened? Was it automated? Was it, driver inflicted? Tesla's going to be looking at all of that because now they're going to face legal action. Now, they said in an interview, they had a quote here saying that he's in the car, he smells and sees smoke, turns around and sees the smoke is filling up the cabin, then flames and reacts almost immediately. The door malfunctions, he gets out and somehow the car is still running down the road, according to a witness, as he's trying to get away from the car. And within moments of him getting out of the car is engulfed in flames. This all happened around 8:55 p.m. And once he saw the fire shoot out of the back, that's when he immediately pulled over to try to exit the vehicle. He tried to get out of the vehicle. He was pushing the door frantically, and it would not engage. He was able to push the button again and lean against the door very hard, and that's when it opened up. It almost sounds like, and I'm not an expert in cars, but I know that when the car reaches a certain mile per hour, the door locks automatically. And don't get me wrong, the cabin of the vehicle filling with smoke, your brand new car that you just got, and you look back and you see flames shoot up out of your car, that would put anyone kind of on edge. I would not be surprised if this gentleman, that's a pretty standard feature in most cars on the road, if the door was locked the first time he tried to get out of the vehicle. And I get it. He put his shoulder into it and he somehow managed to force this door open, which is great. And, I'm sure that, again, I'm happy that he's alive, but I'm wondering if instead of forcing the door open was really remember to unlock the door in a very hectic moment. And he was able to get out of the car after he unlocked the door. Now, obviously, he said that he was able to push the button again and lean against the door very hard, and it was able to open up. The attorneys continued to investigate the incident and would review their options once the probe was complete. It's obviously, again, Tesla is so high profile, they're so dominant in the electric car market that any kind of news is going to any kind of incident with Tesla is going to top headlines, make news, and I think that law firms kind of know that, and they know that Tesla is in a very vulnerable position, and they'd be very likely to pay out to shut people up, especially when it could be seen as Tesla's fault that someone almost died in that incident. But as always, we will wait and see. Now, that was the bad news. How about some good news for Tesla, though? And in a first, they're able to manufacture 200,000 cars that hopefully don't explode. Yes, that'd be very nice. 200,000 cars were delivered for the first time in a single quarter. This by John Fingus, saying that Tesla has once again topped its delivery record, saying that they have delivered an all-time high of 201,000 vehicles. Not just 201,000, but 201,250 vehicles in the second quarter of 2021. And they said that the first time it has ever shipped more than 200,000 cars, it delivered just 184,000 in the first quarter of the year. So they are up about 25,000 vehicles. Very, very impressive. They said that the Model 3 and the Model Y represented nearly all of the deliveries. Tesla delivered just 1,890 Model S's and Model X units, though that wasn't helped by the wait for the Model S Plaid. And of course, the Model S Plaid was highly anticipated. If you were going to buy a Model S, I think a lot of people were just waiting for the Model S Plaid. Now, the achievement comes despite many challenges, and he said that he can't elaborate on what those were, but he previously mentioned major supply chain price issues as a factor. Raw materials were a particular sore point, and the automotive industry as a whole has reeled from chip shortages, making it difficult for companies to manufacture enough cars to meet demand. Which is true for everyone. It's not just Tesla, but every car manufacturer is having extreme shortages of those chips to be able to make those cars at all. And I'm sure that the other one is, of course, the price of lithium, because to make those batteries for those electric cars, you need a steady supply of cobalt and lithium, and those are almost entirely controlled by China. If you wonder why Tesla and their Chinese partnership is so important to them, it's not even about making Teslas in China, but it's more so about ensuring that you have a ready and steady supply of an element that is almost entirely produced, mined, and sourced from China. Now, and even on top of that, obviously everything needs a battery, and hey, prices are definitely going up for lithium. Now, the number isn't as large as what some analysts were hoping for. Estimates range as high as 231,000. Even so, it's notable that Tesla is besting its own results despite the cooling momentum in less than forgiving market. The bigger challenge lies ahead with, of course, Ford and their new F-150 Lightning, where, the new Ford pickup truck is all electric, which is very well selling here in the United States. So we'll see if that has any kind of bearing on what happens there. Okay, so look at the clock, and there we go. Automation system lagging a little bit behind, but that's okay. Music in the background means that we are about done for the day. So some of the articles that we did not cover include the fact that Norway, if you did not know this, influencers in Norway are now required to label their photos. If they use anything to adjust body shape, size, skin tones, or any kind of retouching on photographs, they now have to disclose that in the photo. There's that. There's internal Apple's survey shows concern about the hybrid work model. Essentially, Apple does not want to work from home. You can imagine where we just did a story about Apple making people wear body cams. Apple is, of course, concerned about files leaving its campuses and leaks and potential IP theft of its devices. So yeah, Apple wants everyone to return back to campus, and of course there's a lot more news and more, but everyone, we'll be back, of course, Tuesday. And